Come with me on a ride that was most unexpected to a destination that was not planned and something that was basically straight out of a horror film, if you will. Welcome back to October and to spooky season, ladies and gentlemen. It is here, it is time. Let us commence with the spooky stories. So, I went up to New Hampshire for a long weekend in August, and this is actually one of the places I ended up. I do not have any pictures of the place. I have pictures of the place we were trying to get to. Um, I was with two of my friends. We were going ghost hunting for the weekend, and we were going to stop to do a little healing along the way. My teacher that was with us, she booked myself, herself, and then another friend of ours an appointment at Mystic Market in New Hampshire for a healing session. And we were headed off to New Boston, New Hampshire for this session. It was I think I'm gonna say this wrong. It's an oracular seeding, so it's where you put the seeds into the pressure points of the ear for different ailments, and then a sound healing. So, as we were on our merry way down the highways, we missed the turn. And now, this is where it turns out that either you look at it and go, your angels have a sense of humor, or someone had an attachment and brought one in the car with them, because we ended up down this dirt road, series of dirt roads, really, that was literally like if you were to combine Lake Placid and Cabin in the Woods. Like, this is how the horror story starts. This is how it ends. It's all dirt roads, beautiful houses, beautiful scenery. However, you're turning corners around this lake, very peaceful, very serene. I think there were people maybe out kayaking, there were walkers up and down the roads, which was so nice, it was lovely. It was August, it was a nice cool day. Um but when you don't know where you're going and you stumble down this series of dirt roads trying to get back to your destination, you're wondering, where the hell am I? As there are just trees everywhere and houses set up into the rugged landscape. We were at what is known as Haunted Lake, also known as Scoby Lake. And it's a lovely place. If you live in Francistown, this is in Francistown, New Hampshire. I'm sure it's a lovely place. I'd be really curious to hear any of the stories of the people that live there. But this lake is also known as Haunted Lake for a few different reasons. So, how this lake got its name? Where it's located 2 miles east of the village section of Francistown. Sounds like from older resources, there was always a pond there. So it was known as the Haunted Pond or Scoby Pond, Scoby Lake, Haunted Lake. And this area was always known for being a little bit creepy, a little bit off. Some say that it's a circular pond. I guess from aerial views, it looks like a parallelogram. Let's say, where is it? It's known to be almost a mile in length from east to west and nearly 5/6 of a mile in width. So in 1780, David Scoby, an Irish immigrant, went to this area and built up a saw and grist mill. And it was on the shores of Haunted Lake, and as they were hauling logs over the area, setting up the mill, building it, they discovered a body. Well, not a body, it was a skeleton, for all intents and purposes. And when they studied the bones of the skeleton, they realized it was a tall man, and the teeth on it had very little wear and tear, so they figured he was relatively young. And it was said that the area has always been a little bit weird, a little bit unsettling, and that was just kind of an affirmation, or confirmation rather, of why the lake is haunted. The haunting on this lake goes way back. It's always been kind of an eerie area, apparently, because a fire ripped through there. I don't have a year, so it's probably way before a lot of the settlers came in, and it must have been quite the inferno, because all that was left were very large trees that were scorched, they were blackened, they were sitting in ash, and it made for a very eerie landscape, both day and night. And what would end up happening is there was no wildlife in the area, so trappers, hunters, surveyors, and even the local Native American tribes were very reluctant to go to this area because it was just eerie. There was no sounds, no bugs, no wildlife, no nothing. It was just eerily quiet. So a lot of people tended to stay away from this area. Then, supposedly, our first legend comes from 1741. And two men were looking to buy property in the area. They were scouting it out. They had started out on separate trails. They must have met somewhere in the middle and decided, hey, you know what? We'll just travel together for the rest of the way. These woods are pretty thick. They're dark. Why not? And then they end up camping on the shores of Haunted Lake. Now, this is one legend as to where the body comes from, or the skeleton that Scoby found came from. At some point in the night, for unknown reasons, the two men fought. One killed the other, and because they were so far from the reach of the law, one buried the other in a shallow grave and just left the body there. And then because due to, not being buried properly, not being given proper rites, the ghost decided to stick around. And it would be said that you could hear screaming, wailing, moaning as someone was in intense pain. And this would carry on around the lake. So in 1753, this legend would be basically reinforced that the lake is haunted because Matthew Patton from Bedford, New Hampshire, was hired to basically delineate the town line between Francistown and New Boston. Another source I said that he was out there to kind of survey plots for farmland. Regardless, he is out there with a crew of surveyors, maybe doing both things, trying to figure out what town this lake fell in. Was it New Boston? Was it Francistown? Where's the border between these two towns? Where are these plots going to be if people want to come and buy them or settle in? And he had a whole team of surveyors with him. They were there for one night, and on the lake, they camped on the bank of the lake, and it was said they were kept up all night by mysterious groans and screams of anguish as if made by someone in mortal agony. At daybreak, his people had had enough. They said, "Nope, I'm out." They packed up, left, and nothing he said could make them come back. So I don't know. It doesn't say if the job ever got finished. I'm going to say no, unless he had to hire a whole new crew. Then there's another story where this is the one that people really think is pertinent to the skeleton that Scoby found. They think this is the story. Only one resource I found mentioned the two men fighting. I think it might have come up passingly in a couple of the other sources. But this is who they think is haunting the lake. There were two trappers from Dunstable that went up there. And one went off to go check the traps, look around, reset his line or whatever. He didn't come back. So his partner, getting concerned, went to look for him and found a mountain lion standing over the body of his dead friend after being startled by this mountain lion who was growling at him. So he kills the mountain lion, and at the time, it was thought that mountain lions hunted in pairs, so he didn't want to have to run into this cat's mate. So he hastily buried the body of his friend, packed up, and left the area. And he buried his friend in a shallow grave, and this is the body of the trapper that is thought to be the one that Scoby dug up. It could be either body, maybe the other story is a myth or took place somewhere else, but it's thought to be possibly the spirit of the trapper that also haunts the lake. Now, this is where things get a little bit funny because Scoby had, I think, at least two sons who got bored, as kids are wont to do. There's not much up there to do. You're kind of it's a remote area now. I can't even begin to imagine what it was like in the 1880s, 1780s rather, 1780s. I don't really know how many people were around at the time, what there was to do. So the Scoby boys decided to make bank on the legend and would go around scaring people. They would go into the woods, they would rattle chains, they'd start groaning, they would light rags on fire and make these floating apparitions on the lake. And their favorite targets were the drunks and travelers who just happened through the woods, who happened by the mill, to further along this legend that the lake is haunted. And that it's documented in a couple of resources that this is what they did. They built upon and kind of cemented this story that the lake is haunted. Now, the Scobys would continue to hold on to the mill up until, well, even after David Scoby's death. David Scoby would be another victim, however, of the lake. He would pass in 1828 at the age of 86 in the winter because he was hauling logs across the frozen lake. The lake gave way beneath him and he was plunged into the icy cold waters. Now, I'm assuming he must have drowned unless he died maybe from pneumonia after the fact, but I'm going to assume that in this case he drowned. And there were a number of other drowning victims as well. But they'll hold on to the sawmill for as long as they can. They'll run it, and then they will eventually sell it out to Daniel Fuller. And Daniel Fuller will run the mill up until 1860 when it is finally abandoned. It was abandoned because it's haunted or just because there wasn't any, need for it? Take your pick. I would probably go that it had maybe run its course. Could have been a combination of things. Who knows? Anyway, the lake would still go on, though, to have a very haunting history and would claim more victims. There would be more drowning victims. A 15-year-old boy named Jacob Langdell would drown in 1810. And when they would find his body, he would be clutching lilies in his hand. He would then be followed in 1816 by another youth by the name of Samuel Allen, who would also drown. In 1824, Ichabod Gray, who was 55 years old, would also drown in the lake. It was said that he was deranged, so it kind of makes me wonder, did he drown or was it self-inflicted? I'm kind of wondering from the way it's phrased, although at that time it was self-inflicted drowning. The family wouldn't say. They would try and kind of brush that under the rug because there was a stigma attached to that. There was also a stigma to being mentally ill, but I got nothing. Anyway, and then the last recorded drowning, at least that comes up, is in 1830 from Nathaniel Aiken. There's a small beach area that was left available for people to use. This might apparently be, or is assumed to be, where the skeleton was dug up. So it creates a very peaceful kind of place to go, but some say it's also a very eerie place to sit and relax. I don't know, you could probably have a good old time, sit, relax, talk to the ghost, find out what it wants. Do you need help being crossed over? Supposedly there is also a soapstone quarry that is nearby that has now landed. It's a historical landmark in the area. And what's interesting, though, I don't know if soapstone is one of the stones that supposedly traps energy. I know limestone will. Not sure about soapstone. So I am curious if the soapstone quarry added to some level of just maintaining that energy and holding on to the spirit energy and keeping it from crossing over. However, now it's said that people that live there now, maybe there's not as much activity. The ghosts maybe have seemed to have moved on. If you've ever been to Haunted Lake or if you live in that area, let me know in the comments. Like, do you still hear things or do you still see things, or is there now enough kind of modern movement in the area that it has helped to clear some of that energy? I'd be really curious. I mean, those are some creepy ass woods. If you live there, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. It was a beautiful place, but I think it was just more that we were lost and trying to get somewhere, and it was just like, we're very pretty, but where are we? And then it's like, is the monster gonna come out of the woods now? There is a street though, like, what was it called? It wasn't a dead end. Journey's End. I think it was called Journey's End Road. And we lost it in the car. I'm like, is this it? Is this where our journey ends? Is this like? So yeah, but I will post pictures of I have of the outside of Mystic Market, New Hampshire. They will be here in the video. Try and get you some pictures of the lake. But yeah, you know, it is a private area. It's private. I won't say it's private property, but it's a residential area. So you're I don't really know how much visiting you can do. I believe the lake is open to people, but I don't know where you're going to park. Because there were a few times where we were very grateful there were no other cars on that road because it was kind of narrow. Um, but yeah, so that is not only a haunted location, but welcome to one of my adventures, and I'll see you again soon, folks. Drive safe. Bye.